At this time, we invite Mr. Brian Childress, former Valdosta Chief of Police, to come forward.
I did that for Mayor Gale. He says I speak too long. Gosh, yo. Lucy, I feel out of my league. I do. Some might ask, why is a retired police chief and retired Air Force cop on the stage today with folks like you, General? I really don't have a clue, to be honest with you. Lucy had told me I need to make this funny, so I'm going to make it funny. Let me tell you about Parker real quick. How did I know Parker? Before I was police chief in Valdosta, one of my dearest friends, Frank Simons, was the chief. Now, Frank Simons, if you know this guy, Frank Simons really didn't bend over or didn't, give any breaks to anybody. He was just straight and narrow down the line thing. I'm down in his office one day back in the mid-2000s, and his secretary says, hey, I think I was a captain at the time, said, Captain, Parker Greene's in the lobby, he needs to see you. I'm like, wow, who the heck's Parker Greene? I ain't got time for him. Simons, the chief, heard me, calls me in his office and says, Brian, you don't make him go outside. I'm like, what? You're actually catering to somebody. He goes, yeah. I said, okay, fine. So I go out and I meet him. And to this day, it's a puzzle to me why he decided he wanted to have lunch with me twice a month. But it was pretty regular, twice a month. And by the way, Parker would never set an appointment up. He'd just show up, and you better stop what you're doing, because you're going to eat with him, or there would be repercussions. And not from Parker, by the way. But I mean, I always worried about him calling out a bomb raid on my house or something. I don't know, because he had that kind of power. When I first met him, it was, like I said, a puzzle to me. And I wrote some notes here today, but I don't think it would be fair so I'm going to scrap kind of what I said, and I think I need to talk about this for a second. I think I know why Parker was so fond of me, but it just wasn't me. Parker will tell you, and I see my friends with Georgia State Patrol, I think the colonel's here someplace, Colonel McDonough, and a good friend of mine. But Parker will tell you up front he was raised by Georgia State Patrol. No doubt about it. And so twice a month, and I can say this now because I'm retired. We're city manager. Mark, I'm retired, so you can't do anything to me. But I would take 3-hour lunches because I would just sit, and I was fascinated by the guy. And you hear that phrase, I think, on the History Channel, when history comes alive. I'm sure some of you know this, some of you don't, but Parker knew Dwight D. Eisenhower. That's a fact. Actually worked for the guy. Parker knew George H. Bush. I think he knew most of the presidents. And that's the beautiful thing. And I got 3 things I wanted to talk about and describe Parker. But let me add one more. Parker was a cop's cop. I am telling you right now, there is no better friend in law enforcement than Parker Greene. And he also considered security forces in that field. And when I was colonel, when I was one of your cops a long time ago, sometimes you always felt like, well, I'm not a real cop. Oh, you better not tell Parker Greene that. Parker saw security police, security forces. He saw Georgia State Patrol, FBI. I mean, that man took care of all of us. And there were times, I can tell you, when I became police chief, that we would have an officer or a trooper or a deputy or a cop on base that was in trouble. And all I had to do was call Parker, and boom, or Lucy. If I couldn't get Parker, you could always get Lucy, because Lucy was his secretary boss. Everybody knows that. So, but when sitting with Parker, I got to see when history comes alive. But the other thing I got to see with Parker was humbleness. I have never met a guy that was so humble as Parker and Lucy Greene. I didn't even know who they were. But that should say a lot about their character. That should say a lot about who they are. And here's my funny story, Lucy. and you know I've told this before. I got to be honest with you, when I first met him, and people started telling me that, well, you know, he's a pretty powerful guy, and you'd never know it. But, and again, I'm still puzzled why he wanted to have lunch with me. Maybe I was his comedy relief. But Parker and I having lunch one day, and he's like, well, let's go have lunch next week. I said, man, I can't go have lunch next week. I'm going to be in Colorado Springs for a police conference. And he goes, okay, call me and I'll get you a tour of NORAD. I said, NORAD, inside Cheyenne Mountain. He goes, yep. Now I left. And I got back my little unmarked police car. I'm thinking, oh, man, he is full of it, okay? This guy, whatever. So I get out there, and I've got some staff with the police department with me, and this is like a Tuesday, and I called him and said, okay, big shot, I'm here. And he said, all right, I'll have somebody call you in a half an hour. And almost on a dime, a half an hour later, a lady called me from U.S. Northcom NORAD, I think is how you pronounce it. And she said, is this Brian? I'm like, yeah, who is this? And she told me her name was Rachel from U.S. Northcom NORAD. I said, okay. And she goes, I understand you want a tour of NORAD. And, you know, after 9/11, all that stuff got real secret squirrely and shut down and stuff. I'm like, yeah. She goes, all right, tell me who's going. And she goes, you're going to have to call me back with names and stuff. I said, okay. Well, she started to hang up, said, hold on a second, time out. Tell me who you are again. And she told me, and I said, how on earth do you know Parker Greene from Valdosta, Georgia? Her words, not mine. She said, honey, everybody in the Air Force knows Parker Greene. and Colonel, I still wasn't sure. And sure enough, we get this tour with a Medal of Honor winner through NORAD. But that goes back to his humbleness. And everybody made all these wonderful comments about Parker, but I think the best way to describe Parker is this, and Lucy. And this won't stop. Parker and Lucy are behind the scenes, humble people who I saw daily take care of folks. And you just can't put a price tag on that. And so why am I up here? Lucy, on behalf of law enforcement, you and Parker have been and will be part of our family, and we love you. I love you, and thank you for letting me in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Childress.